Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto Anime episode review. This one's going to be for episode 29, which is called the new Seven Ninja Swordsmen. And yeah, this was I think, solid episode. Nothing particularly impressive in that I feel it was very much a kind of transitional episode, moving us away from a lot of the setup and then obviously getting the fights actually started and just, I suppose, what the nature of the fight is going to be, roughly who's taking part in it, a couple of the like mysterious elements kind of going on in the background, but overall interesting enough episode without being like overly incredible. So the main thing I took away from this episode was basically I think a lot of the interactions between like Chojuro and Boruto, with Mei kind of in there as well, and just how the approach to, I suppose, tackling this new group of Seven Ninja Swordsmen went. In that Chojuro, I thought it was interesting to see him really step up and immediately be like, we have to take them down like as a shinobi. And I like that Sarda immediately kind of translated that to everyone as like, that means you plan to kill them, as they are kind of doing an uprising within his village basically. And I like that because it's with Chojuro, he's definitely I think the Kage, the current Kage, who you're kind of like, yeah, it's kind of unconvinced about him. He is much more, I suppose, cool-headed than a lot of the other characters, but also he was quite meek in a way. That was kind of an aspect of his character when we met him initially. So it's pretty cool to see him just kind of actually go for the kind of kill him method initially, and Boruto kind of stepping up to kind of convince them that like, why don't we just keep this small, in that like, don't treat this group as like an uprising revolutionaries. Just treat it like kids having a fight. And if we do that, there's no need to kill them. There's no need to take it as seriously as you're taking it, because fundamentally it is just kids. And that reveal last time out that the main kind of leader of this new Seven Ninja Swordsmen, he's only 18. It was like pretty big, and that like he's not that much older than our main characters basically, and he is still just a kid. And especially with the way some of them were talking in this episode about the whole idea of like, we want to prove ourselves and like test ourselves, like what's the point in learning all this jutsu if we don't get to use it. The idea of like, we basically want to start a war so we can use the powers that we have. And I was kind of waiting for someone to jump in and be like, you don't know what war is. If you knew what it was, you wouldn't want it. And that's like, what is wrong with you for wanting that sort of fighting kind of type thing. So that's obviously, I think, the weakness to their point. I like that when they kind of captured Chojuro, that they kind of did bring up the kind of valid point of like, this is a memorial for everyone who kind of you died in like the war and in the kind of darkness of kind of what the village used to be. But what about Yagura? What about all these other type of characters from the past? They meant, of course, like the fourth Mizukage. I assume they mean like Kisame and the Seven Ninja Swordsmen who kind of went evil and bad, and kind of, I suppose, the people who represent the village when it was like that. What about them? Why are they forgotten? And that's the, I suppose, the valid point that they have of like, yes, they are the villains, the bad people from your town, but like, shouldn't they be remembered to a degree as well, and not just forever forgotten? So that's, I think, the interesting dynamic take on it. I think we're definitely still waiting for Chojuro to really make a decision, but clearly he's going into this battle knowing that the leader of this group is not. He knows he's kind of like this, and that he ultimately is probably like the ringleader behind it, and that Yagura is. He knows that Yagura kind of struggles with these type of things, but still has that kind of belief in him that he will be, I suppose, the leader of like the next generation, that he was right to choose him to wield the blade. And in that sense, they did a good job at like just having Yagura in this episode be very back and forth. He's part of the group, but he's also the one questioning their goals and intent to a degree. and that he's so isolated from the group, you question really what's going on, and it's really only the leader being able to kind of control Yagura to a degree that's giving them any sense of like that he's on the team, bringing up that, you know, you hurt me, that brings it back, and it kind of brings it back onto the team, and then setting up that, like, you know, we want you to kind of be like the leader, we'll install you as the leader kind of once you're in place, and that then the blood of like the fourth Mizukage can kind of lead again. That's kind of his intent, that I suppose the kind of bloody past of the Mist Village kind of in a way was ushered in by someone of your blood, so the best way to get that back is to, you know, deal with someone who has that same blood. So that's interesting. Definitely, I suppose, with the setup by the end that it's Boruto versus Yagura, sorry. Then we have the girl with the twin kind of fang, kind of electric blades. Again, like, one of my weaknesses in Naruto with regards to knowledge is trying in any way to remember the names of every single wielder of the seven blades, the names of the blades themselves, and that sort of thing. So I don't really know. That's why I'm struggling with the character names here, because it's such a big group and we don't really know these characters all that well. But I thought it was interesting that the girl seems to some degree either like the leader of the group, or they're in a relationship and were very seriously talking about it. But that girl is seemingly going to fight Sarada kind of underground, which is going to be interesting. You know, basic Sharingan versus those one of the seven ninja swords, pretty cool. And then it seems like Chojuro is handling 3 of them on his own, and then the leader hasn't really, you know, acted as such just yet. He hasn't really done anything. So there's definitely you know, a lot of interesting things here with regards to, like, clearly the numbers are in such a way where there probably has to be at least 1 or 2 more characters who come and join this fight, which is obviously what the rest of the episode was setting up with the scene with Mitsuki and Suigetsu. I like that they just immediately came out in like the first scene with them in this episode and had Mitsuki just call out Suigetsu, "You're following me, I know you are." And that Suigetsu was almost acting like this kind of, you know, older brother to Mitsuki. I kind of like that he's ultimately going under orders from Orochimaru to like protect Mitsuki, but I like that to a degree it was kind of out of concern for him, but also like concern for, like, we don't want you to go overboard and like reveal your connection to Orochimaru. So kind of saying by the end, you know, here's this scroll, get involved if you want, but, you know, don't go crazy with this. And I kind of like that because it's setting up, obviously, what's been set up with Mitsuki for this entire arc, that, like, he is really, really powerful, and he kind of knows that he's going to be important in the fight, so we're probably going to get to see Mitsuki do something. The really interesting dynamic that I thought with here was that you had Inojin and Shikadai actually see this connection between Suigetsu and Mitsuki. Now, obviously, they weren't really involved in the whole Gaiden arc, so they don't really know. I'm assuming they don't really know who Suigetsu is, but just that they're seeing Mitsuki interact with someone kind of mysterious, kind of talking about these connections is interesting in and of itself. But just that they're all like concerned about Boruto, and realistically, those 3, maybe Suigetsu will get himself involved a little bit. Something will happen there. I'm thinking Suigetsu is going to stick around though and do something that, like, something with like some of the other blades will relate to him. Maybe he'll get his executioner sword back or something like that. But I'm not entirely sure just yet the way they're exactly going to approach to do it. As it is now, obviously we've got a setup for a lot of different fights, but none of them, I suppose, actively kind of in play just yet. Anything else to say with the rest of the arcs? I did like that, going back to the earlier scene I talked about, the one where kind of Boruto convinced Chojuro to kind of view this as just a fight between like kids, basically, that he stumbled upon rather than it being like a serious threat to the village. That way he isn't required as Mizukage to like eliminate them. I like that in a way, him convincing them about it he convinced May about it by kind of going like, you know, I'm wounded because of this field trip, you know. What if I went back to my dad and told him that I got wounded here, you know, like it would cause an incident, wouldn't it? And he's just playing that political game. And I like that Sarada also pointed out when they were walking away that, like, I didn't expect you to mention anything about your father, but kind of Boruto just brought up, you know, I didn't want to, but I kind of had to in a way. You know, the importance of a friend kind of comes first over any sort of a like minor grudge like that. So, you know, highlighting again the connection between him and Yagura. Clearly Boruto is going to make some sort of a breakthrough at Yagura. How exactly they approach that, I'm not entirely sure. I suppose it's probably going to take the leader of this group, the guy who's manipulating him, the Hoshigaki member, whose name I can't seem to remember right now. It's probably going to take his kind of views and kind of leadership being taken down a peg or two to really, I suppose, snap Yagura out of that and kind of make him think about things on his own. But yeah, overall, I'm pretty happy with where this episode has left the series off. It looks like next episode's going to focus on the Sarada versus girl with the twin electric swords fight, while also, I suppose, getting the rest of the stuff into place. I'm assuming, you know, we've probably got about 4 or 5 episodes still to go in this arc just to get the fights across that we need to get across. And I suppose as well as that, the recent manga chapter seemed to more or less confirm that nothing crazy serious is going to happen in terms of like deaths or injuries or anything like that, because Boruto still considers this field trip like this fun trip that he had to the Mist Village. So I think by the end of this it'll all work out nicely, but I think it's going to surprise us with, I suppose, how interesting and serious it ends up actually being. So that's my review on the episode. In the comments let me know what your thoughts are. But yeah, that's been the video for today. Thanks for watching, and bye.